using some online tool for translators, which they will be able to use. If you are forcing translators to download POV files or what, it make project look more open for contributors because you just click and you can contribute. You don't have to send patches, upload files somewhere, send merge requests or whatever projects need, which is also fine if you support that, but it just brings additional hurdle for translators, which are usually not that technical people. They are simple people who know more languages, but they don't have to know how to develop your program. So they don't know how to work with version control system, and it makes harder for them. But on the other side, using online system can bring you some troubles. Of course, when anybody can contribute, the quality of translations can suffer. Simply, you don't know who will come, and some people will really put ugly things, and either you won't notice or it's hard to spot if you don't know the language. Sometimes you can spot that after somebody else speaking that language gives complaints too, where you have some nasty words in the translation, and you cannot do anything about that because you don't understand the Zulu language which has been used for that. The other thing is, which is quite common problem with online tools, that they don't remember attribution of translations. They don't record who has translated the string, and it's simply lost when the guy puts something into the interface. It doesn't record that information. It can be important for license reasons, for example, if you want to relicense anything, or simply when you want to know all changes which some guy did. Either you want to check how much work he did or just check what bad things he has done. So this is quite challenging with some tools, but it can be solved. And the last challenge I would like to mention is that many of the tools simply show the strings with the source string and the translation and don't give translator any context, which will usually lead to bad quality of translation because nobody then knows where the string is shown, what are other strings in the same dialogue or similar consequences. So that's also a thing which can be quite easily solved, but a lot of tools suffer in this area. So basically, if you choose to do the online translation, you have several choices how to do that. The first option is skip it. Don't provide that interface. Of course, it's a valid choice. If you have stable translator team, it might be actually better because you won't get random people messing up with your translations. On the other side, it's hard for new people to start because they need to start with blank file and downloading it and figuring out how to contribute to the project. And basically all what a regular developer needs to do, but the translators usually don't know that good technical knowledge. The other option is to use some service which is available on the net. There are several well-known services like Transifex, which provide you some interface to control. It's usually free for free software. But you have to pay if you want to translate something which is not free software. And of course, there is risk that the service will go away and you will have to handle that. This happened quite recently with AmanuSense, which was used by quite a lot of projects, mostly for Android. And when it's gone, they were left in the dark and they had to search for a different solution. And last option is to set up something on your infrastructure. There are, I would say, about 10 open source projects which can help you with that. The most known is probably Poodle, which is quite about 5 or 10 years old already. It has been rewritten several times, and we have used it in past. And then we're slightly going to next part of my talk, which is Weblate, which is one tool which was written to overcome some of the shortcomings which we have seen in other translation systems for using on over-the-web interface. It was written this year, so it's quite new project, but it's already in production use in about 10 open source projects, and I'm aware of about 3 or 5 companies using that internally, but yeah, of course. And it's a quite new project, it's getting used quite well. So let me explain why we started to write Weblate. We lacked some of the features which we find quite important for us, and we thought that this should be really easy to implement, and we actually didn't understand why no such tool exists. So that's how we started. One of the things is when we have distributed version control system, why not to use it also as backend for the translations? Because most of the tools simply keep it separate. They don't care about anything below. You just put a translation file. You need to download it from there and handle somehow how to put it into your version control. Quite connected with that is attribution of contributions. You should be able to know who has contributed what. Sorry. With downloading file, nothing will be really recorded there. So that's quite connected to integration with version control system, because you can directly commit changes there under the names of the people. We had also troubles that we maintain stable and development branches, which basically share most of the translation strings, but they are not 100% same. And when there's some major changes in development branch, it's simply impossible to merge the translation on a file level. So it needs to be done knowing the file format, or the translation tool can handle that, which is the case of Weblate. It allows you to separately translate different branches, and when the string is same in all branches, it will update these as well. And yeah, last big advantage, I would say, is that it tries to support automation as much as it can. In ideal case, when nothing bad happens, you basically don't have to touch, and the translations will automatically flow to your Git repository, and you don't have to care about that. So, as I mentioned, it is important to help translators so that they can produce good translations. One of the first things they need to know is where the string appears and how similar strings were translated in the repository. So this is all what Weblate offers you to show. You can look up similar strings, you can search for surrounding strings, and it simply shows you how other parts of applications are translated. So if there are same words, you can easily see how they were translated in other parts of the application and use the same words in translated language. It also allows you to define dictionary, to have a consistent set of some words, which are, for example, used quite often. You will see then words from the dictionary on the translation page, and you can also define or edit the dictionary as you wish. So it's anything. It can be simply edited as the translation as well. Other helpful thing might be using some machine translation services. Currently, there is support for 3 of them. Microsoft service, which is free after registration, so you don't have to pay for that. There's Apertium, which is also free, and My Memory, which is more like translation memory, but it also supports some sort of machine translation. And of course, when somebody changes the translation or there is something new to translate, the translator should know about that. So that's why there is a set of notifications. You can, of course, configure what you want to get, but the most important thing is that when there is new string, you can be notified, so you can directly work on translating that when it appears. Other part which quite a lot influences quality of translations is consistency of the strings. I mean, if they are used correctly, if there are no missing format strings, if there are not absolutely different new lines and similar things which can break displaying the translation in the context of application, but yeah, you can hardly detect this when you're translating because you might skip that or you don't know how format strings work. So that's when Weblate tries to check all that. These checks, there are about 10 or 15 built in, but you can define new ones. And the built-in checks try to be quite clever, but of course they can easily miss something. They have some language-specific rules, like there are different spacing rules about semicolon in French and such definitions, which yeah, even native speakers sometimes don't know. So they are then surprised when such check fails. And yeah, whenever some violation is detected, just after translation is done, the translator sees this in the interface. So this doesn't have to be somehow checked somehow manually, but the translator directly sees this fail. So he can adjust the message or ask if there shouldn't be change in the source string if he thinks it's something which doesn't make much sense. And the other thing is that Weblate is really built around Git. It might support some other version control in the future, but right now it's quite tightly bound to Git. Every translation is committed to the repository with correct authorship, so you know who has translated. You can look up at the Git history later. The translation is simply just another remote repository, so you can merge that quite easily. It's simply pretty much standard Git. The only thing which happens is that the commits are not done immediately, because if you would commit every single message, you would end up with thousands of commits quite fast. So Weblate tries to group commits from the same translator, so it might get some time until it is actually committed to the repository. You can, of course, force that from the interface, but the default configuration is that waits until somebody else will start to contribute to the translation, or it is needed to commit, for example, when there is upstream changes which need to be merged. And there's some automation which will help you, as I said, in ideal case, you don't want to care about how to merge the things back and all that stuff. So the translations are automatically pushed to all branches, as I've already mentioned. The upstream changes can be automatically downloaded. There is direct support for GitHub notifications, but for any other Git repository, you can simply trigger it by downloading some URL, so it's easy to integrate with anything. And it can even automatically push changes upstream if you allow it, if you have configured the Git repository in a way that it can be pushed by Weblate, it can push the changes there, and you will get the changes automatically upstream, and yeah, it doesn't, you don't need to care about that. The only case when you need to care is when there is some conflict in the translations. So, for example, when somebody changes the file manually or in the Git repository, and there are also some changes to the same string on the Weblate side, in this case, you simply have to do manual git merge. Currently, there is no support for doing this for web interface. It might change in future, but this happens quite rarely in our case, so it's not really a priority. And yeah, you can try Weblate. I can demo if I have enough time yet. Yeah, okay, so that's perfect. So, oh. Yeah, even the website works, so it's nice. Is it visible? Okay, so it's quite messed up, but it's with higher font, but it doesn't matter much. This is screen which you will get when you enter the Weblate without being registered. You see which projects are there being translated. Here we have just Hello World. You can see state of languages. And there are also some consistency checks, as I mentioned, so we can see which of them are currently failing in the translation. If we log in, because otherwise we won't be able to translate anything, we can just give suggestions. We will get slightly different view. Every user can define which languages he is interested in, and he will get direct links to this translation on his main page. So we can see that we are interested in Chinese, Catalan, Chinese, and Czech, and English. So yeah, somebody has chosen that. So let's start with the Czech language, because I know I'm able to translate into that. We have some basic information, and we see the 3 not translated strings, so let's get to that. Here's basic thing or area for translation. We see source string, we can translate. Here are some machine translation services which we can use. And we see here Dutch. It's one of the features which Weblate offers. It allows you to choose secondary languages, which will be displayed next to source, so that if you know other language, it can help you with the translation. Here we have Dutch, which I don't know, but Hello World is quite easy to understand, so let's translate it, for example, this way. And I will quite intentionally forget the trailing new line, which will end up with some warnings. I can either choose to ignore them or simply fix the message by adding the missing new line, and it will stop complaining, and I can get to other message. I've mentioned some ways to showing context. It's on the bottom of the page. So here we have surrounding strings, which in case of this project won't help much because it contains just 4 strings and every one of them is different. But in a real project, it usually shows you the strings which are in the same dialog or used in the same place. There's also lookup for similar messages, which are here none, of course. As I mentioned, this is only 4 strings, so it cannot show anything. There is allocation stub, which would show if the string is used in different branches, which we don't have here as well. We have no dictionary, and this here records recent edits so that we can look up who has changed the string in the past. So this is basic way of translating. If we look at the in this area, if there would be any failing check, fuzzy strings, or anything which translator should be aware of, it would show just another item here. So you can simply check that. We have seen on the main page that there are actually some failing checks, so we can go to this. So we see that in Hello World, master branch, and in Armenian translation there are some failures. So we can see now here that all the failures that Weblate has detected. These are really basic checks that should work pretty much for every project, but you can define your own rules what should be checked. And yeah, I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to show you. So if you have any questions, just ask. There are some links which you can use to access Weblate or to get more information. Any questions? I can repeat the question for the recording, so just go ahead.
You are generating MO and PO files or something like that, or which is produced the translation?
It really depends on the project. Weblate is using Translate Toolkit for modifying the files. So pretty much everything what is supported by Translate Toolkit works. So you mentioned getText, works, of course. It supports Android resource strings, OSX properties, Mozilla properties, Java, whatever they call that. So basically, pretty much every format used is supported. You might have some problems with formats which were not tested because everyone is slightly different, and Translate Toolkit is unfortunately not hiding all these obscure details, so there might be some bugs, but getText is the primary platform which is being tested. Android resources and OSX properties are also widely tested. The others might have some bugs, but yeah, it shouldn't be anything hard to fix.
Yeah, and the other question, you mentioned I can write some checks in Python, so I think the Weblate is written in Python.
Yeah, it's written in Python. It's using Django framework.
Yeah, okay. So if I would like to install on my server, so I need a Python and some server. Yeah,
if you want to just try it, we have SUSE Studio images available on our website, so you can simply download virtual machine and run it in VMware or whatever. Amazon Cloud, there's about 8 formats of images which you can download and directly run to test that. It will need some tuning for production setup, but for testing, it's just you boot it and it will work.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any other questions?
Yeah, I've got one question. Why did you choose a non-standard naming instead of glossary? You say translator dictionary. Instead of translation memory, you say, I forgot even.
Well, there's... it's not really translation memory as in a sense as it's normally used, so that's why we have chosen different name. For the dictionary, I don't know, simply.
Okay.
It could be called glossary as well.
If you want to attract non-technical people, well, then probably you also want to attract real translators, and they will understand these terms better. Okay.
Yeah, okay. I was not aware of this at all.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you for your attention. And if you have any questions further, you can catch me anywhere on the conference or contact us on mailing list on IRC.